You tune into the Sportscast with Brian, Craig, and Jeff. Give you all the sports news you need. We give you outspoken thoughts about all the headlines. We talk baseball, football, hockey, and more. No matter the topic, we cover it. Get ready for the show and keep it outspoken. Keep it outspoken. We keep it outspoken only on the Sportscast. Tune into the Sportscast with Brian, Craig, and Jeff. Give you all the sports news you need.
All right, guys, welcome in episode number 50. Kind of a little milestone mark here for us. Jeff is on with me this week. We're back together. How have you been, Jeff?
Been pretty good. I just had a couple things I had to take care of this week. But I didn't get to jump on earlier in the week. And I think we both kind of had a plan B just to kind of, have some kind of backup plan for the weekend and do kind of like a special episode for episode 50.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what we did. And, we've both been extremely busy, you with your work and me with work as well, but moving and all that good stuff. But I'm glad to have you back on. And this is an episode. It's going to be kind of a miscellaneous episode. Our special main topic is we're going to get into why we love the teams we love. And as you noticed, if you've watched our videos or listened to our podcast, that we don't just like the teams because we live somewhere. We chose our teams for a certain reason. And we'll get into that in a little bit and kind of give you why and the reasons behind that. The NBA, Jeff, is coming to a close pretty soon. I think it ends next weekend. Mavericks just clinched their division. They're going to be looks like the 5th or 4th seed. So that's a good finish for them. Really good finish. They've been playing some good basketball lately.
Yeah. It's been a crazy tear they've been on ever since the whole complaining about the playoff game. Gosh, that's a lip bender there. It's been, they've been lights out, man. They've been just hunkering down and just going crazy, trying to either move up so they don't have to worry about that, or maybe they're all clicking on all cylinders right now. So they're sneaking in there quick.
Right. And they're doing it they've been doing it without Porzingis. And I think that's the huge thing. And there, there's talks about, are they sitting Porzingis for the playoffs and what does that look like? And I think there's like 3 or 4 games left. I want to see Porzingis play. And to me, Porzingis is he's a rhythm shooter. It takes him a couple games to kind of get going. So I would like to see him go into the playoffs with that momentum. We'll see what happens with him, though. I think eventually, what we've kind of learned from their last stretch here is they don't have to have Porzingis to be successful. And I think there's a very high possibility he gets moved in the offseason. I think there's some frustration with Luka there because they can't rely on Porzingis, and that's got to be a problem. But I think that this team has grown together, and it's made them come together, and I think that's kind of a good thing. And right now they've learned, though, that they can be successful and win games without Porzingis. And I think they might move on from him in the offseason and try and get someone else to come in there with Luka. But it's looking good heading into the playoffs. I don't know who they're going to play first round. We'll see where the seeding ends, but they have some potential to upset somebody, definitely.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think they're at 5 now. So they're a 5th seed. And I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the Lakers. Seems a little weird. Yeah. It's odd. You had Chris Davis injured again. Question mark?
Anthony Davis, yeah.
Sorry, Chris Davis. I don't know why I said that. Anthony Davis.
You got baseball on your mind. It's okay.
No, yeah, Anthony Davis, and then the way he tripped, and I don't know, dude.
Well, here's the problem with the Lakers, and it's funny, but it's not. And last year when we got Anthony Davis, the guys we had, I said we're good, but we're not good enough to win. That the team around us isn't good enough. We had Anthony Davis and LeBron. It was kind of about it, but we won the championship, and which was crazy. And a lot of people don't want to credit the Lakers for because it was in the bubble and all this stuff. It doesn't matter. We won the championship. And this year we got better. We got better with better talent, and we're struggling. And that's all because LeBron and Anthony Davis got hurt. Excuse me. And the reason why I think they're so injured this year is, well, first of all, obviously Anthony Davis has been injured his whole career, and that's his issue. But with LeBron, he played so hard at the end of last year, and they were on little rest coming into the season. And I think for his age, it's put a lot of wear and tear on him. And I think we're kind of seeing that breakdown in his body. He actually came out a couple weeks ago and tweeted that he will never be 100% ever again after that ankle injury. And it's gone. It's bound to happen at some point. I think we've kind of hit that toll. Maybe it's maybe this is kind of the slowing down of LeBron, where we kind of see the end of his career, or maybe we lose in the playoffs. LeBron gets a rest of the offseason and they come back stronger than ever. So I just think the lack of rest from the last season with all the when starting early and not having that break, which they usually do, definitely hurt the Lakers. And that's something that I've already knew coming into the season that was going to be tough for LeBron. And I was hoping that the guys around him could step up and play. And even with LeBron down, we've had Anthony Davis come back. He scored 36 points the other night, but we still end up losing. So we're losing these critical games at a critical time. And we might just be in that playoff game to figure out if we're even going to make the playoffs. And we talked about this a little bit earlier. Would they fall so much that they wouldn't make the playoffs? We both doubted that, but it could be a possibility getting down to the very end here.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's weird. Cause I just expected them to be ready to go. But again, this could be another weird situation where it's like, oh, I don't know, everyone's doubting. And then here, come playoff time, everything clicks and everybody's on track. And yeah, isn't that what they did last? That's what they did last year, right? Isn't it a similar thing? It was just kind of like everybody kind of doubted them and they just came in there and cleaned house pretty much.
Yeah, and they doubted him because the roster of the Clippers was so strong on paper. And we all know that on paper, they should win, but it really didn't happen for them. So, and honestly, I like I just said, I didn't think they were going to win last year. The roster, the bench, the bench team, the people coming off to help, and it wasn't good. But we were able to pull it off. And I think maybe next year with a full season or a full rest, going back into it, I think will definitely be way better, and this won't be an issue. But
yeah, it's going to be an exciting playoff. So yeah, if anybody is excited for NBA playoffs, it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be there's going to be a lot of twists and turns, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see if the Jazz and the Suns and the Nuggets. I'm interested to see those three teams, and are they for real? Especially the Jazz are a team that always makes it to the playoffs, but they never do anything. They always ran into Michael Jordan, and they couldn't never get over that hump. And we see the Nuggets coming up with Jokic and Murray, and then the Suns have come out of nowhere this year, and the addition to Chris Paul, I think, has brought that leadership that they need, that team, to bring that young team together. And Devin Booker's a beast, and what they've been able to do. So I'm interested to see, are these pretenders? Are they contenders? And we're going to find out. And I'm not really scared of the Utah Jazz. I think that I think they've been the most disrespected team this season because they've led the number 1 seed for almost the whole year, if not, I mean, pretty much the whole year. And there's no one talking about them. And I think that's because they don't show up in the playoffs. But
yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's going to be fun. Like if anybody's a fan of basketball, NBA playoffs, it's going to be a really exciting, playoffs. Honestly, it's going to be interesting because it's not like you have, I mean, you got the super teams, right? But you have these like teams that no one was talking about before, like Utah, like Dallas, even though Dallas has Luka and all this stuff, they're still technically, they're not part of that super team category. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, man. Because I mean, even like if you even take a look at like Brooklyn, I mean, Mavericks just beat the Nets. Now they didn't have Harden, but that's still a tough team.
Yeah, and people say like super team, and the Nets to me are really the only super team. There's a lot of teams out there that have 2 duos that are top players: the Lakers, the Mavericks. Porzingis it can be a top player when he's playing healthy. You look at the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and when the Nets started adding all these people, they have 3 superstars. I'm like, man, they're the super team, and they're the team I want to lose. I can't stand the super team mentality. But you look at the Nets, they're going to be tough to beat. You look at Philadelphia's come on, they're going to be tough to beat, but they're another team over there in the East that's just kind of, are they going to show up when it counts? And so we'll see about that. Boston's a young team that's talented. Will they put it together? And then you look at who's the other team, the Bucks with Giannis, and they've got a lot of hype last year. I thought I'm not a big. I like the Greek Freak. I'm just not a big fan of his. I think he's got a lot of holes in his game, and that when you shut him down, it's kind of, if you shut him down, it's just kind of over. There's not really that team around him. I think they can take over a game. But it's going to be an interesting playoff run and playoff finish, and I'm interested to see the seeding and what happens. And how do you feel about the play-in game? Do you like it? There's been a lot of talk lately. Do you like it or do you not like it?
I don't know. I know that it's frustrated a lot of players. So, and I have to, be a little humble here and say I'm not too familiar as to why they're upset. I know that it's kind of a one and done kind of thing. That's what makes it so indifferent, but I'm not sure, like, breaking it down into the actual rules of what's going on with it. I'm not quite for sure as to why everyone's upset and what it is. So go ahead and explain that.
All right. So they started this last year with the NBA bubble going on. And what it is if you fall into the, I believe it's the 8 and 9 seed, 7, 8, and 9 seed, there's a play-in game. And if the 8 seed, I think it's just the 8 and 9 seed, actually. The 8 seed, they play the 9 seed, and if the 8 seed wins, they go on to the playoffs. If the 9 seed wins, they play another game, and then the winner of that would go to the second game would go to the playoffs. So it's kind of it's a tough. It's I like it for this reason, and it's because it makes the end of the season and that the bracket and then the regular season games important. Where if you weren't going to make the 8 seed and you were in the 9 seed, it's just like the games aren't important at the end, and it doesn't really matter. It brings that important. Into the importance of those games and this final stretch, to coming in and you look at the Lakers. This is a perfect example. They don't, if the Lakers, if the playing game wasn't going on, then it'd be whatever. The Lakers would need to win, and they wouldn't have to because they're probably going to be in the top 8. What's the point? So we can kind of rest up and kind of stroll in to the 8 seed. But now, if you fall into that category, you could be out of the playoffs. So those games become more important. And I think it's getting a lot of heat because whether we like it or not, LeBron James' words carry a lot of weight to them. Last year, he didn't complain about it, right? This year, he's complaining about it. He said the guy who thought of that should be fired. But that's only because he might be in it. And that's why he doesn't like it. That's it. And it's interesting and frustrating. I'm not a big LeBron fan. And he's a Laker. He can win me games all he wants. I'm a fan of him on the court. I'm not a fan of him off the court. So that's been interesting to have a guy on your team you really don't care for. But, as long as he's helping winning games, it's kind of all that matters in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I think that's the only reason it's getting a lot of heat is, and it's getting a lot of heat too because they didn't think this season started on such short notice, and you're adding more games because the playoff games or the play-in games coming up, and it was kind of like this is a good rule for the bubble and maybe a good rule coming forward, but a lot of players didn't want to do it this year because of the lack of rest that they just coming off of and jumping right back into his season, and they're playing 10 less games, which 10 games to me is not really a lot. That's really not like, oh, that's enough to make a difference in the way my body feels every day type thing. But so I think a lot of people have an issue with that as well. Those are things I've heard about it, but it does to me make the games at the end of the season more interesting and worth watching.
Yeah. And, any of them, if there's any Maverick fans listening or whichever, it is interesting. And I wonder if Porzingis is purposely being taken out in hindsight as to them as a result of them already doing very well without him. Maybe towards the end, he'll be thrown in for a few whatever. And then come playoff time, they're probably just going to throw him out there. But if they don't need him and they're winning right now, why risk more injury for, games that you're already winning these games. So it really doesn't really matter. But I wonder if they're doing something like that. It seems kind of interesting, but I wonder if they'll just throw him in there the last game, just going to give him reps. And then come playoff time, he's ready to go.
Right.
But that'll be interesting. But
it's interesting to see what they're going to do with him, and that's been the frustrating thing is when Porzingis is playing and he's playing well and they're clicking, the Dallas Mavericks could be a pretty scary team, and they are a scary team with Luka. Any night he can beat anybody, but Porzingis just adds that something else that they need. What I might think they might do, and Porzingis might not like this, is limit his playing time where he's not playing a lot. And they have to do that because his history. And that's just a smart thing to do.
Yeah. We're seeing it with baseball. We're seeing a lot of that with baseball now. Yankees in particular, the analytics have come out already. And there's, because of the length of the season, you're starting to see a lot more, like, for example, Aaron Judge, a lot of fans right now are like, he's not the same player outfielder wise. He's not making those risky catches, those diving catches, those climb up the fence and grab them and steal a home runs away. And I was listening to a podcast and they were talking to a doctor overseas, and he said that Major League basketball started doing this. But Major League Baseball started doing these analytical type scientific studies to where it's probability of injury. So it's like, okay, if Aaron Judge is diving every game to catch a ball, or every other game he's jumping to snag a ball from the stands, right? The result of him getting injured, if he did it every single time, 100% play. Like, no, regular season, not including playoffs, but regular season stuff, is the more likelihood of him getting hurt. And it's interesting because when they started implementing this a little bit last year and they've started fully doing it this year, we're seeing less injuries, which is so weird. And they started doing that with basketball, and I didn't know that. I was like, what?
Yeah, the Spurs are actually, I believe, one of the first teams you start doing that, where they're benching players. And it's controversial for basketball. You know, if I pay for a ticket and I want to go see, you know, Anthony Davis play, right, or LeBron James or whoever, and I go to see him play, and they're not playing this game; they're sitting out and it's not because it's not for an actual injury; it's just because they need some rest. And I get it, and I think it's smart to rest your players like that. And the NBA actually will find teams for sitting there. They have certain strict rules on that, but the Spurs used to do that all the time. And Greg Popovich is one of the first ones that actually started that. And it's interesting that you say that about baseball, because I really didn't know that's something that they do too. And, you know, people don't think as baseball as a physical sport, and it's not really as physical, you know, as actually making contact with another body or another person. But when you're an outfielder or you're a catcher taking a hit on first base, or, you know, people get injured walking to their car in the morning. You know what I mean? So, so them running around and doing those things, you definitely come up with some injuries. And you hate to see a career like Judge's be some, you know, injury prone, where it kind of cuts him short. And my favorite baseball player of all time is Ken Griffey Jr. And his career was amazing, but it could have been so much better if he didn't have all those injuries. And he was another guy that he's jumping into walls and doing all those crazy things because he can. But in the long run, tear an ACL here, you do this there, and kind of slows that career down. But
yeah, the guy talked about how the swing of, like, for example, like Giancarlo Stanton, he's a DH now. He's not an outfielder anymore. Mainly because I think the injuries that he sustained as an outfielder were just constant. You know, like he played he played maybe 4 or 5 games last year. Yeah. And that's just crazy. So if you put that into perspective, now he's an everyday DH. He's not an outfielder, and he's lighting it up. He's hitting home runs. It's insane. And I think it's the amount of just trying to swing and hit that ball when you're Aaron Judge with that much power, that much torque, is like, I mean, just the average person would just be probably throw something back, throw out their shoulder. I mean, it's just, it's insane how much, and then when you swing and miss or something like that, it's just even worse. So it's interesting because he said it's different for players that are like Altuve, right? He's small. These guys can last a lot longer in the league, but the bigger guys, based on what they're talking about, are going to have limited play because the bigger guys get hurt quick now. They've noticed that they get hurt faster. Their careers aren't as long. They don't stay in the league as long. And if they do stay in the league long, they're taking steroids. There's reasons as to why they lasted so long. And so it's kind of crazy, but it's an odd thing to think about.
So I'm glad you brought up that name, Jeff Altuve, and that's not the correct pronunciation of his name, Jeff. It is Altuve. All right, Jeff, that's his new name, and I like to call I listen to Ben Maller in the morning, and he's freaking hilarious, and he hates the Astros so much for cheating, and he calls them the Astros. Or I like to call them the trash stros. And I bring that up. We bring that up because I talked a little bit about it when I went solo this week. But let's not forget, and we need to be promoting this more often, how the Astros cheated their way to a World Series and got away with it scot-free, and how much that angers everybody. And what was great was this last week. So the Astros played the New York Yankees, which they cheated and cost the Yankees a trip to the World Series that year. And they played at Yankee Stadium for the first time since the incident. And Jeff, there was only 11,000 fans in the stadium, but I swear to God, that thing sounded like it was full. Oh man, they had chants of F. They used the actual word though, Altuve. F Altuve. F. They did that so bad to the Astros that they cried to the Major League Baseball Association. Oh, the fans are being too mean, Jeff. They're hurting our feelings. Snowflakes. And I love it.
Oh.
And I don't like to praise the Yankees or Yankee fans. I'm not a big Yankee fan or the fans. But that's a round of freaking applause because that needs to happen everywhere. And it's great. It's greatness. It's greatness.
Well, I will say this. The reason why the reason why the Yankee fans were so different than any other place they had been to, because it was their team in particular that got knocked out twice the way this team cheats. Happened in 2007, happened in 2018. And maybe it happened in 2019. I don't remember, but I know 2007 was the year that all of a sudden these guys came out of nowhere. Everybody was like, "Who? Aaron Judge? Who? Like, Gary Sanchez? Huh?" Like, and so it's just they came out of nowhere, and it was just like bursting onto the scene. You know, to break it down, the games that the Yankees played when it came to the playoffs in 2017. In New York, they destroyed the Astros completely. It was a joke. Then they go to Houston and they lose, but they lose oddly. Like they lose 1 run, 2 runs. We hear about the whistling. We hear about all these weird things, and you're just like, why is the discrepancy so odd? They go to New York, we whoop them by 5-6 runs. It's a joke. And then we go to Houston and we lose these weird 1-run games that are odd. You're just kind of like, what the heck happened? You know, all of a sudden their pitching clicked only when they went back to Houston. That doesn't make much sense. I mean, it's just, it was so weird, you know, and now that you hear all those, now that we know all the information, well, we understand why now. Why the discrepancy was so weird in Houston, why the Astros had such a odd winning percentage at home compared to any other team in Major League Baseball. They had the best home field advantage you could think of. That's kind of odd. I mean, you know, you're going to lose some games. There's going to be some odd splits. You may or may not do well at home, and you may or may not do well on the road. But the drastic discrepancy. I mean, I'd love to know the numbers on that. How many games that they won at home in 2017, and I guarantee you it's in the single digits.
Yeah, and I think they even did it on their batting, the players' batting average from home and away, and it's drastically different. And if I was the owner of a baseball team, Jeff, and I knew the Astros were coming to town, I would give every person a little mini baseball bat, the little miniature ones, and a trash can to bang on. And they'd fill the stadium, and whether it be filled stadium or 11,000, and every time the Astros came to bat, just bang the living out of that damn thing. And what the weirdest thing is Rob Manfred is protecting them. He didn't punish any of them. They lost their manager. They could give a crap.
Nobody
less
wants
about that.
Baseball does not want negative press. Negative press is bad. They're already trying to change up the image of the game. They're trying to make it more popular. That's why they release MLB The Show on Game Pass this year. Don't expect that every year, guys.
It's a great show, though. It's a great game, though.
Yeah, great game.
Fantastic game.
Yeah, great game. You know, if you have Game Pass, cool, you can play the game. But just No, you're not probably. You're more than likely not getting a Game Pass next year. That was for this year, and I think that was just to get enough people to play the game, and then they're in, and whenever it's released next year, they go buy the game. But my thing is they're trying to make the game more popular, and I get that. But just like with things that happen in the NFL has egg on their face too. They're the most popular sport, but they get egg on their face all the time, whether it be the concussion protocol stuff, whether it be domestic violence. We're seeing the stuff already taking place with Deshaun Watson. I don't know what's going on there, but baseball doesn't want negative press, but there's nothing you can do about it. If there's blatant, obvious stuff that's going on, if you ignore it, it makes it worse. If you ignore it, you look worse. And then it makes people just not care about the game because they look at it and they go, oh, why? It's full of cheaters.
Well, if Rob Manfred, is the worst baseball man, he's the worst baseball CEO of all time, in my opinion. I can't stand him. I don't respect him. He could have easily. This is okay, Jeff. Think about this. Say if you're an athlete, Jeff, in a professional sport. What do you work? You work your ass off, right? You work your ass off to stay in shape, to do what you need to do, to play at a high position. Football players, they go through a car wreck every week. That's what they say it, basically tackling somebody at a high rate of speed is kind of like going through. They go through all these things, right? The baseball players, they go through 162 games a year away from family or working out. Could you imagine the person who's running your sport call your championship that you worked your ass off for at the end of the year it's just a piece of metal, Jeff. It's just a chunk of metal. That's what Rob Manfred's sorry butt said when they asked him, why didn't you take the championship away? Oh, it's just a hunk of metal. Who cares? What do you mean, who cares? Every baseball player that puts on that uniform every damn day cares. That when he said that, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? That's
First of all, I didn't know he said that.
Yes.
I didn't know he said that. And
yes.
I'm going to tell you something right now. I'm looking at a banner.
Infuriates me.
I'm looking at a banner right now of 27 of those hunks of metal that he deems irrelevant.
It's just a hunk of metal.
And this dates back from 1923 to 2009. So this hunk of metal has been around for a very long time, longer than any of us can imagine. And it's just like, what? That's like saying, that's like going to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Okay. And Cooperstown and looking at a plaque and go, it's just a hunk of metal. Who cares?
It's just a hunk of metal.
No, baseball is one of if there is anything that is America pastime completely, it's baseball. My God. Like if you sit there and say those kinds of things, how stupid are you? You are.
And you're running the sport, Jeff.
Yeah. Could you imagine Goodell saying that?
Oh, he would get torn. The people would be calling for his career. I mean, and his not only lack of doing any punishment for the Astros, the continuation of just protecting them. And there was a report that some person tried to show up at the Yankee game in a Oscar the Grouch costume, and they yes, which is great, right? And the security guard stopped her and said, "You cannot come in dressed like that. Baseball has made this official, made it a rule that they're trying to protect." It's asinine. And Rob Manfred needs to go, man. I do not respect him. And yeah, you can go look up his interview, and I completely said it. It's just a chunk of metal.
Yeah.
Jeff.
I mean, Aaron Judge, somebody asked Aaron Judge after the game, what he thought about the fans and how the fans are reacting. And he said, I can't fault fans, and, we just have to go out there and play the game. But, he kind of laughed, because I think deep down, he just looks at it and he's like, well, they cheated when we were playing them. and we brought it up, and AJ Hinch just laughed it off, like whistling, and it's just like, what, are we delusional or something? Because they had been hearing about that throughout the season. They had been hearing that they would do these things like whistle, hit things or whatever, and they kept hearing it. And Aaron Boone brought it up, and AJ Hinch just laughed it off, like you're crazy. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, whatever, like and so
and I think there were buzzers as well.
I think there were too.
You can't tell me Altuve hits a home run, winning to go to the World Series, and he comes to the plate and he's telling people, "Don't rip my shirt."
The excuse was on that one?
With his girlfriend.
A tattoo.
A tattoo.
Yeah, he had a tattoo, and it was fresh ink. And yeah,
what's the first thing you do when you hit a home run, walk off home run? Whether it could be a regular season game, Jeff. This is to go to the World Series. You cross home plate. You got all your guys there just hounding you because you just did something. Your shirt's usually ripped or whatever. I mean, you can't sit here and tell me that he didn't have something.
First of all, why would you be getting a tattoo when you're in the middle of a playoff game? That's one thing. Because if you have to slide on your chest, and you got a fresh tattoo, how dumb is that? Not to mention getting hit by the ball. Not to mention, diving, because he's an infielder. He's gonna dive. What? Who?
Well, I heard a different story about it. I heard when they asked him about it at the end of the game. Of that game, and they interviewed him. They asked him about it, and he said he did because his girlfriend would get jealous if they pull. I'm like, what are you talking about, man?
Excuses. So, I mean, I'm gonna kind of transition this a little bit. I don't know when it is, but I know the All-Star game is here in town soon. Yeah, our league this year, the All-Star game is here in Denver. So they released a logo and a few other things, and I know a lot of people. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of press running around. It's gonna be pretty busy here. So, which is kind of crazy.
Colorado this year.
Yeah. It was in Georgia, but then they this whole hoopla happened, and then they switched it and brought it here. But
side note of that is, Colorado has the same voting rights as Georgia does and voting laws.
Mm-hmm.
So when they moved it,
I wonder it was this.
When they moved it was.
Go ahead.
Well, when they moved it was just to save face. That's all it was.
Right.
No one looked into. Colorado has the same laws, which, in my opinion, I'm not trying to get all political here, but you should have to have an ID to vote. Period. End of discussion.
Right.
But anyways, that's what they moved it there, just to save face, just to kind of look, but it's like,
I wonder if it was already in circulation. Like, I wonder if next year it was going to be in Denver, or maybe the year after or something. I don't know. Because why would they come to Denver? Or maybe they would just cycle to the next, whatever the next one would have been.
And it might have been that they were next. So that's a good point. But
because they haven't had it here since '99. It's been a long time.
But my whole point is, like, if you're moving it for a specific voting law, you think they would choose a state that doesn't have it? I don't know. It's interesting and dumb. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I don't know why they. Anyway, it is here. We're gonna see a lot of press here, which is kind of crazy. I don't know. I get real iffy about that. I remember when the Super Bowl was in Dallas, I was just like, man, like, there's going to be so much press and people. And
hey, I remember that year too, buddy.
And it's coming. It's coming great. Again. I know for, what was it? I know that the WrestleMania next year is going to be there. So there's more.
There's a fight tonight, I believe. It's tonight. There's a Canelo fight there. There's going to be thousands of people.
Mayweather and Logan?
No, not yet. That's not yet.
Okay. Oh.
It's Canelo and somebody. I don't follow boxing too much, but it's funny. Speaking of Jerry's World, and you're talking about the cow, the NFL having egg on their face. Well, I listen to 105.3 and I get all of Cowboys talk and sports talk. during work. But interesting you bring that up, because did you know, Jeff, the Cowboys drafted 3 players this year that they have some sketchy past, Jeff. First of all, their first overall draft pick, and Micah Parsons, got punished for hazing players and hazing new teammates. I don't know what he was doing to him, but he got punished for that. Okay. There's another guy that got punished for he got suspended for, or he had to actually leave LSU, Jeff. He left LSU and went to Kentucky, and his reasoning was because he needed more publicity. And you don't leave LSU football to go to Kentucky football and think you're going to get more publicity. Basketball, yes. Football. And here's the cherry on the cake, Jeff. They also drafted a woman beater. He has 11 accounts of domestic violence. 11, Jeff. And they asked the I don't know his name. I don't know all these. I just know Micah Parsons, the first round draft pick, but the other guys, the one that has 11 accounts of domestic violence against him, they asked him about it, and all he said was, "The past is in the past, and we've moved on." They're like, that is the worst answer possible.
11 counts, by the way. 11 times
one.
This person said the past is the past.
one incident for woman beating is enough for me to go, man, you're a piece of shit. 11? Sorry for the language, my bad. 11? Are you kidding? You got drafted by the Dallas Cowboys? That's crazy. So they were kind of shell-shocked about, man, they took these guys with these histories. The hazing might have been nothing. I don't know. There was something going on there at Penn State.
Had to be bad enough for
it to leave a mark.
Yeah.
There's a guy, Jeff, that they drafted in the 3rd round that was projected to be a 7th round pick. Wait, what? And now this portion, if Ryan Sims is listening to this, is for you, buddy, because he follows the draft like nobody else. And actually, I next year's draft, I kind of want to have him on episode because he does some really good homework on it all and way more in tune into it than I am. But explain that one to me, buddy, because he always gets on to me, man, Green Bay sucks at drafting. Explain that one to me. You pick a 3rd round pick who was ranked to be the 40th cornerback, not the 40th player in the draft, the 40th cornerback on the board, and you take him in the 3rd round. That was interesting.
It all went downhill when a lot of players they wanted started falling off the board relatively fast. Kyle Pitts, they wanted the other cornerback that went right before Denver,
J.C. Horn.
Yeah, they went J.C. Horn. They wanted Surtain.
Yeah.
They didn't get him, so then they trade down, and then So I mean,
and here's the dumbest thing too, Jeff.
It's like they didn't have it's weird. It's like they had like 3 or 4 options on the top of their board, and then after that, when those options just went away, they didn't know what to do. It was just like, what's
weird? Yeah, what's weird is, and this is how the Dallas Cowboys run, right? They're never wrong. They never make a mistake. They said Micah Parsons was their number 1 guy on their board, which is total BS. We know you wanted a cornerback. We know you desperately need a cornerback. And it's not just, and that's what they were bringing up in the shows this week, is just like, okay, if a linebacker is your number 1 on your board, then you got issues. Micah Parsons might be one hell of a linebacker, but that position is not as high as some other guys. And what's wrong with saying, yeah, we really wanted Surtain. He got taken before us, so we went with the next guy. And then the next guy could have been that line. We all know you wanted some cornerbacks. They didn't get their guy. Whatever. It is what it is. But I just thought that when Jason Garrett was with Dallas Cowboys, it was the right kind of guy. They call him RKGs, and they're like, well, I guess that RKGs is out the window with the new coaches and stuff. But I just thought that was some red flags on some of their draft picks as far as their character wise goes. But
well, and I mean the other thing is also, you know, when it came to their draft ranking, there's some people that are part of ESPN that ranked them at D. I think there was a guy his rank was a D. And I'm like,
they apparently had the 4th worst draft this season. They ranked all the teams in their draft, and they were on the bottom.
Were picking up high. How the heck does that happen when you pick up high? You should have a decent draft if you're picking up high. There's not a whole lot of excuses there.
The draft pick. I mean, I like Micah Parsons. I don't like the high pick they used for him because, like I said, linebacker is not a very. I mean, it's a good position. It's not a very. What's the word? It's not a very high valued position, and as when it comes to winning football games. So I don't like that they took him that high. Now they did move back and take him on the 12th pick. There is actually a linebacker they got out of LSU who is pretty good, and he's good in coverage, and that's what they were missing. One of the things they were missing. There's a lot of things they were missing on the defense, but Micah Parsons is more your run downhill kind of run stopping, sack the quarterback guy, and the other linebacker they got is going to be able to cover some guys out of the backfield, but. I was surprised they didn't pick up the 5th-year option on Van Der Esch, which was surprising to me. I thought they would. My buddy Ryan thinks they're going to tag him and then use the option next year, which is a possibility. But he's so injury prone that he's kind of like Porzingis. You just can't rely on him. So
right, yeah, it's it's interesting. And a lot of what I've been hearing is that George Payton, who's the general manager of the Broncos, he goes a lot on rankings. Like he does a lot of I don't know what they call. I wonder if it's what you were talking about. So he looks at like what their actual ranking is, and based off of that, our draft was good because he went off of. I forgot it was like some kind of analytical.
Is it Pro Football Focus? That's a famous one that's out there.
It was Pro Football Focus, but it was something else. But they were ranked like super high, and I'm like, that's just crazy. And because of that, they said that we had a good pick or a good draft out of our picks that are going to actually make. I think it's like they would make a difference quicker than somebody who was a lower ranking. So. They would be able to make an impact now as opposed to 2 years, 3 years from now.
You know, they said the Patriots had a better draft than the Cowboys. The Patriots picked dead last, and you know all this is just rankings. You know, we don't know what will happen, and the Cowboys draft could be excellent when the player gets on the field. We never know. Green Bay, I thought had a really good draft for them. And they were ranked like 20th. So, you know, they a lot of grades gave them an A. I gave them an A. I like what they did. It's all going to be for naught if Aaron Rodgers don't come back. And I gave my 2 cents on the whole Aaron Rodgers. It was about 35 minutes last week on the Aaron Rodgers thing, Jeff. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you about what's your feeling of the Green Bay drama going on and what you think about it, and what do you think ultimately happens with Aaron Rodgers? It's a tough one.
It's kind of weird because I mean I do think that if he gets drafted, we will know here in the next month.
Traded.
Yeah. If so, it seems likely because it just seems like unless you don't. You're going to have that just lingering over your head all year long. It's going to be a topic of conversation that the press is going to be asking every game. They're going to be asking it all off season. They're going to be asking it preseason. They're going to be asking it playoffs. That's it. And when the playoffs are over, they're going to continue to ask it. So it's do you really want to have to deal with that? I don't know. I know I've heard stories that if they're going to trade him, Denver's the likeliest place. I don't know why. I don't know if Aaron Rodgers wants to come here or
I saw a report today that said that Denver Broncos is his number one destination that he want to go to. So
that's interesting.
That is. And here's my issue with this, Jeff. And it doesn't make any sense why you would trade him after the draft. Why would you trade him after the draft? You would trade him before you get your first round picks. Hell, the San Francisco 49ers offered us a third round pick, next year's first round, a couple players apparently. We don't know. And all of this is hearsay, right? Well, we do know the 49ers did make that phone call. It was the head coach. He called Matt LaFleur, who's really good friends with Matt LaFleur. And you would trade him because you would get the draft pick. You could draft a future quarterback right there, and we would be on to the next. But if we trade him before June 1st, Jeff, is a $38 million cap hit. All right. If we trade him after June 1st, it's like $28 million, which still isn't very good. If we move on from him next season, it's only 17, and I think we can handle with 17. I think he ultimately retires. I don't think he comes back to Green Bay, and I say that because I love Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, he is the best quarterback the Packers have ever had. Period. In a discussion.
Favre.
He's better than Favre.
No.
Now Favre's my favorite quarterback of all time, but he's better than Brett Favre. There's no argument. No logical Green Bay fan can argue with me that he's better. That Brett Favre's better. But Aaron Rodgers is a petty person. And Aaron Rodgers, this is a guy that cut his whole family out of his life, Jeff. Okay? Which I don't, people used to bring that up to me. I'm like, I don't care. As long as he wins me football games, he's not out beating women or doing stupid things. I'm fine. I don't care. We don't know his relationship with his family. I just don't see it happening. The way the reports have gone about him making fun of our GM and how disrespectful that is in general. And I just don't think he does. And he has two options, Jeff. He has an option to retire, or he has an option to show up and play football. And that's the only two options he has. Green Bay has all the leverage here. They can force him to sit out, but here's the issue with that. This year, the league passed a rule. Actually, it was in the agreement, the players' agreement, that back in the day when players set out, they would get fined per day. And at the end of the day, when the players showed up to practice because they worked out a contract issue, the team could waive that money that they fined. Teams are no longer allowed to waive that. That is mandatory payment from player. That's number one. Number two, if you miss 5 days of mandatory practice that's unexcused by the team, you do not get accounted for an accrued NFL year. So it's like he would just skip a year and he would still owe the Packers 3 years of service. He has no way out unless the Packers decide to trade him. We're not ready for Jordan Love. Reports are saying that the Packers don't think Jordan Love is ready. I just don't know unless we trade him after the season. And I think regardless of what happens this year,
what if he gets
Aaron Rodgers is gone after the end of this year?
What if he gets injured? And guys, anybody, obviously we're not doing video right now, but I did do air quotes on that. So that was a sarcastic injury that I was talking about.
I'm torn. I don't know. I want him back as my quarterback. I'm not ready for Jordan Love. I'm not ready to go through quarterback hell. I've never been through it, Jeff. I've been with Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. But the other half of me is, and a lot of the league is on Aaron Rodgers' side. I'm not on Aaron Rodgers' side. I think he is. He's being a prima donna right now. I think, and ultimately it comes down to this. Two things happen, Jeff. One, and I've said this before to you probably, but Green Bay drafted Jordan Love because Aaron Rodgers was not playing good. Then Aaron Rodgers comes out and plays like an MVP, and it threw a wrench in their pick of the Jordan Love. That's exactly what happened. They're not going to admit it, but that's exactly what happened. Number two, if you want to tell me that the Packers have not ever helped out Aaron Rodgers, I will agree to that in the first half of his career. I'll agree to that. They did 1 year, and we won the Super Bowl, right? But this is new management. This is a new GM. He's done a fantastic job of drafting, in my opinion. Except last year's draft was the worst draft I've ever seen. But the last 2 out of 3, I graded A. Perfect. Great drafts for us. He hired Matt LaFleur, who came in here and is killing it as head coach. He's lost 6 football games, Jeff, in 2 seasons. All right. And in the regular season, obviously. He has done things that are good for us. Aaron Rodgers has a top 5 offensive line. He has, last year, statistically, the number 1 wide receiver in the league, a top 5 running back, the best left tackle in the NFL, a top 10 defense. They were number 8th ranked defense last year. He didn't get the job done. Aaron Rodgers didn't get the job done in the NFC Championship game, and that's on him, and that's on LaFleur for kicking the field goal, and our stupid defensive coordinator who made a couple bad decisions on coverage. Aaron Rodgers has plenty of help. You can't tell me that he doesn't. We scored the most points.
So if you
hold on. Let me put this one last thing. We scored the most points per game last season. How does Aaron Rodgers not have any help? You think he's out there throwing the bums and they're averaging 38 points a game? That doesn't make any sense. Anyways, go ahead.
So if you're going to put the NFC Championship loss on someone, who is it on?
It's on Aaron Rodgers.
Why?
He didn't do enough. Your defense gave you 3 turnovers, and you gave up 0 points on those. You did not score any points on 3 interceptions from Tom Brady.
Why did he not score? Was it drop pass? Was it?
Oh, I'm pretty sure it was a couple drop passes.
Okay.
Holding on to the ball too long, getting sacked. You're the MVP. You're supposed to make plays when it counts. Tom Brady did, right? That's why they beat us. I don't put all the loss on Aaron Rodgers, but he is partly to blame for it. There's a lot of Packer fans that'll be like, well, what else could he have done? He could have done more. And it's not like he went out and had 500 yards passing and 5 touch. No. Okay. Your defense gave you the ball 3 times with the game on the line, and you didn't get the job done. Quarterbacks take the blame. They take all the credit, right? Tom Brady won the Super Bowl by himself last year, Jeff. Mm-hmm. Not to mention that they had one of the best defenses put together, okay? Not to mention that everybody went, that's so frustrating to me. So some of the blame is on Aaron Rodgers. He could have ran for it on 3rd and goal, but he decided to throw it. There was a wide open Allen Lazard in the end zone, and he tried to force feed it into double coverage to Levante Adams 3 times in the end zone and couldn't get it done. Aaron Rodgers had a lot of fault in that game. I'm just being real. I love Aaron Rodgers. I'm just being real with it.
I just wonder if he's had, I don't know, maybe he just doesn't, maybe something happened to where he just was like, I'm done here. I'm done playing for this general manager. I'm done playing for this organization. I'm not in it. I'm not excited. Like, I mean, I don't know. It just seems if it's a lack of, it doesn't seem like to me a player like that could just lose a step, in the most, like in the biggest games and stuff. Like it just, to me, it seems like what what is it the organization? Is it so much to change that you're just like, this isn't what I wanted? Like maybe he asked if he could help pick some of the coaching staff that were coming in. And I don't know if maybe the organization was like, nope, and he's just like, all right, whatever. Maybe he asked, hey, can we pick these few people from the draft? Because I think they would work well with me. And they're like, nope, and if you feel like he doesn't have a voice and he's the face of the organization in terms of player wise, he is the face.
Oh yeah, he is.
Then he has no weight.
I get you. And we've seen this before. We had a tight end named Jared Cook. He's the tight end who made the catch against the Dallas Cowboys. 2 feet in bounds, amazing catch on the sideline. Set up a game-winning field goal we had 30 seconds on the clock, and we beat the Dallas Cowboys. And Jared Cook has been great for us that year. And Aaron Rodgers comes out and says, this is a guy we need to keep. And what do, Jeff? They release him. They let him go. Aaron Rodgers comes out and says, man, Jake Kumro has been doing really good in camp. He's a guy, he's putting in the work. What do? The very next day, they cut Jake Kumro. Now, I am one to believe that certain players that earn their time and their respect do have some say in an organization, right? Do have some say. And I'm not talking about GM hires. I'm not talking about who are they drafting. But he should have a seat at the table and say, hey, what's your opinions on this guy? What's your opinions on that? And to have that input. And I do agree with you there. And I think that's where he feels the lack of disrespect. And that's what this is about. Green Bay apparently offered to make him the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, Jeff, which I would have been pissed if they did. We don't have the money for that. You want to pay him more than $45 million a year? You want to pay him more than Patrick Mahomes? That's ridiculous. I'm glad he turned it down. He's apparently turned it down because it's not a money issue. It's a lack of respect. And I can see that through the years, but that's not from this new GM. And that's my issue I have with it. It's not this new regime that's coming in. And last year, they drafted Jordan Love.
But how do we know that? How do we know it's not from this GM? How do we know behind the scenes is it the same song and dance as it was before, just with different faces?
We don't know. And the biggest issue, Jeff, is we're not owned by an owner, but Mark Murphy is basically our owner. He's our CEO. There's a board of people that help run the team. But Mark Murphy is the issue, and I don't think we'll ever be as good as we can until that man is dead. And I say dead because no one can fire him, and he won't leave the team. I don't like the guy. I don't like him. But
Packer fans are now going to run out and pitchforks and torches and go to his house.
There's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that love him, but I don't like him, and I think he's soft. Mentality's soft there. I just don't like him. I'm just not a fan of Mark Murphy, and it could be the same song and dance behind the scenes. But from what I've seen from LaFleur and what we've seen publicly from the GM. And since he's only been there 3 years, actually, this is his third season going into this season. We haven't seen those. Aaron Rodgers, said keep Jared Cook and they cut him. That wasn't under Brian Gutekunst. That's what I mean by that. Now, behind the scenes, I don't know what the relationship is. Apparently, it's not good. Openly mocking him and stuff like that. I didn't mean to take up too much time with this talk, but it's an interesting topic that took over the whole NFL draft. And
I mean, I'll go back to what you'd asked me what I think, and if I'm bringing it into like a Bronco perspective, if
you want Aaron Rodgers, Jeff, it's okay to say you want him.
If the Broncos, it's basically Peyton Manning, but now we have a defense.
Whoa, Jeff.
Yep,
he's better than Peyton Manning when he played for Denver because he played that last year, Jeff, was rough. He's better than that.
And the reason, but the thing is, when Peyton Manning got here, the offense just completely started breaking records left and right, and it was ridiculous. Yeah. But we had no defense. and we didn't have Von Miller, or we didn't have anybody.
Yeah.
So
Sorry about that can opening. My bad.
No, actually, I think we got Von Miller the year before we got him. Actually, so we had Von Miller. We had nothing to help Von Miller.
Yeah.
So if Aaron Rodgers did come to the Broncos, he would then have an offense and a defense, and a lot of complementary players. The interesting part is, what does Denver give up to get him? It's possible. I don't think they're going to get rid of Surtain. I know a lot of people brought that up, and I'm like, why would they draft him if they're just going to get rid of him?
We don't need. Well, we could use him, but we don't really need him. I think
Chubb was being thrown around.
Your other Cortland
Sutton was brought up as well, which would be interesting because if you think about it, and then we also, I'll talk about that in a second, but there's a lot of, and then obviously you have the draft picks that would be thrown around. So I don't like we could get rid of the wide receiver, not Surtain, dang it.
Jerry Jeudy.
There's a possibility of getting rid of Jerry Jeudy. They mentioned that.
Hey, I'll take Jerry Jeudy and 2 first-round draft picks, and you can have Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, I'll take that deal. I think he's gone no matter what next year, but
yeah, who?
Aaron Rodgers.
Oh,
he's gone after next year.
Yeah,
regardless.
it's going to be interesting. I just don't know I don't know. I don't want Denver to just completely dismantle a team to get one guy, and that's what I think would have happened with Houston. Yeah. I think Houston would have wanted the whole bag and more, and there's no way George Payton is going to just completely destroy the team to get one guy and be crap with one guy, and have to build back up again. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, and Aaron Rodgers doesn't have the time to build back up again either.
No. And that's the thing, is it's got to be a smart trade. It's got to make sense. So do I think this is going to be interesting? Because I would have loved to have seen Peyton Manning on the Broncos when he was as good as he was in the first few years with the defense we had when we won the Super Bowl.
Oh man, y'all would yeah. We would have a couple more rings there. My opinion.
We would have destroyed some people big time. We definitely would have beat the Seahawks. So, it's going to be interesting. I don't want them to. The only thing I don't want them to do is destroy the defense. I could give 2 craps about the offense. I really could. I like the defense. I like the way where they're going with it. I like Vic Fangio. I think he's a great defensive coach. Even though he's a head coach, he knows his stuff. Like, the guy is really good. So I just don't want them to break that apart. So if they can make this trade happen, but with some offensive players, I don't care. Keep the offensive line. I would not dismantle that. That would make no sense. But yeah, if they get rid of a wide receiver or whatever, some picks, it wouldn't bother me one bit, honestly. As much as I like Jerry Jeudy, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they will get rid of Jerry Jeudy, mainly because there's a possibility of Cortland Sutton being gone. That's probably what George Payton would rather do. I don't think
Jerry Jeudy. I think you just drafted him, and
last year.
I think, him and Adams together though with Devontae. Whoo. But let's use this because we've already been on here an hour and 7 minutes, and we haven't talked about our main topic yet. So let's use this to transition into our main topic, and that's gonna explain our favorite teams, and we'll start with football since we've been talking about it. Jeff, go ahead and tell us why you are a Denver Broncos fan.
Well, my dad's a Cowboy fan, so I had to pick another team that wasn't the Cowboy.
That probably has something to do with it.
That actually is true, but that's not the reason I'm a Bronco fan. So my dad tried to get me to watch football for ever when I was a little kid, and I could care less. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't understand it. I tried to ask questions. A lot of times they were kind of don't ask questions. You know, the game's on. You know, so it was just kind of like, okay, whatever. Like so if nobody was going to teach me, then I'm not really interested. I played soccer a lot as a kid, so I knew more about that than I did football. So my parents divorced when I was like 8. So then my mom came to me one day and was like, hey, we're going to go to a Super Bowl party at a friend's house. I was like, she's like, you want to come? I'm like, and I knew what the Super Bowl was. I just didn't know the fundamentals of the game or anything. So she's like, yeah, let's go. So I was like, yeah, sure, we'll go. And so we went, and it happened to be Denver versus the Packers. And so I watched that game from the time it started to the time it ended. And I was completely just, you know, mesmerized by John Elway, the Broncos, the team, the fight that was in the team, the fact that John Elway was just throwing every ounce of himself out there, no matter if it was getting injured or not, didn't care. It was
helicopter flip.
It was the helicopter flip. It was an awesome Super Bowl. It was a great game. Like, it just was one of the best Super Bowls I've ever seen. As much as it sucks for you because you're a Packer fan, it was just a fun game, and I was engaged in it. I was excited, you know, and I was just like, why do I like this team so much? I don't know. The following year, my mom asked me again, we're going to go to a Super Bowl party. Do you want to go? I was like, oh, sure. And I didn't know who was in it. I was just like, I guess. So we went, and what do I see? It's the Broncos and the Falcons. And I'm like, what? So I sat and watched, and he won. And I was like, this is my team. Like, there's something about the colors, the logo, the fight in this team, the fight in the quarterback. And I'm luckily, I mean, unfortunately, John Elway retired after that, but I became a Bronco fan because of him, because of seeing them play and watching that and learning the game. And that team is the reason why I know about football, why I know what it is and all the fundamentals behind it, and, you know, things like that. That is one of the reasons why I like the sport. And because of that, I will forever be a Bronco fan. It kind of unfolded that way, and I don't know why. Maybe if it unfolded a different way and my dad, you know, taught me the sport when it was the Cowboys, I probably would have been a Cowboy fan. Who knows? The Cowboys just, I don't know what it is. They never grabbed me like the Broncos did. And maybe it was just because, I don't know. Maybe it was just because I had heard of them for so long, and I was just like, I don't know. But this team I hadn't heard of before. And so it was just like, and seeing them, they were different to me. And I don't know. I've been a fan ever since, and I ain't going to go anywhere.
Nice. Yeah. It's funny because I never really, I don't think I really knew that story. So that's interesting. Mine's kind of the same, but a little bit different. And it was the exact same time. I started watching football every Sunday with my dad, you know, and my dad is a Cowboys fan. Then he was a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, and he's a, you know, he doesn't watch it anymore, sports, but, or he does a little bit, but not as much as he used to. Anyways, so as a kid, I started watching football, and I said, well, I got into a certain age. I said, it's about time I learned this game. I was asking my dad questions. What does this mean? What is 1st and 10? What is this? What is that? And you start picking up little things. And I remember watching Brett Favre, and I said, man, this guy's fun to watch. He's a gunslinger. He throws the ball all over the place. He's tough. He's funny, his interviews and stuff. So it was actually the year after they beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I didn't even know what the Super Bowl was. I had no clue at that time. And I started watching him. I said, okay, this guy's fun to watch. I'm going to keep watching him. And what my favorite color is Green Bay. So I started like researching. I started looking up some history on Green Bay and learned about Coach Lombardi and the Ice Bowl and Lambeau Field and the history behind the team. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, all this history. And then I watched Green Bay play the Super Bowl against the Denver Broncos that year. And I remember going to bed crying, Jeff. I was crying because my team lost the Super Bowl. And to this day, it's still my favorite Super Bowl. Even though my team lost, it was one heck of a game. Yeah, I remember it just mesmerizing me and catching me into loving football. And ever since then, man, been a Packer fan ever since. I'm wearing Packers gear all year long. I have wristbands on right now that say Packers on. I have hats. I have jerseys. Football is my favorite sport. I played it in high school or middle school, and
we both did together.
Yeah, we did. We played it together in middle school. Yes. And then just watching Brett Favre. He's my favorite football player of all time. He's the reason I'm a Packers fan. And I will always be a cheesehead. Always be a cheesehead. So then we got Aaron Rodgers, which is amazing, and he turned out to be really, really good too. So he turned out to be better than Brett Favre. And but I remember watching Brett Favre and how funny he was too. I thought that how much he joked around, had a really good time. You could see he's one of those players that you could see loved the game of football. It wasn't about money for him. It was actually truly about loving the game. That really brought me into it, the team and everything. And I've been a fan ever since. And I think it's funny because that's kind of the same year you became a fan of Denver. Maybe if Green Bay would have beat Denver that year, maybe you would be a Green Bay Packer fan as well.
Oh man, maybe, who knows?
And I started thinking too. Another thing is, I didn't choose where I live. Right? You don't choose where you're born. Now I'm grateful to be born in Texas. I love Texas, love it. Not going anywhere. But I said I didn't choose where I live. Why do I got to choose to be a Cowboys fan? And I knew some Cowboys fans that were obnoxious. I still do.
My father.
Growing up and listening to their trash talk and their stupidity about, we're going to the Super Bowl this year. I'm like, bro, you were 4-12 last year. Let's just hold the brakes on that stupid talk. But they think it's sort of year every year. I'm like, you were 8-8 3 years in a row. I don't get it. So with growing up with that fan talking and now we're kind of a rivalry because Aaron Rodgers is undefeated in their stadium and we beat their butts a lot. So it's kind of fun to have that. But yeah, man, I just took down all my Green Bay stuff in here right now. Not that we're doing the video or anybody can see right now, but yeah, and my man cave's gonna be Green Bay all day.
Wrong, guys. He is no longer a Green Bay fan. He took the Green Bay stuff down, and there are Cowboy stuff behind him. Don't be fooled.
That's false. That's false.
Nah, it's because he's moving. It's because he's moving.
Yeah, I am moving. And it's been a pain in the butt. But all right, the next sport we're gonna move on to. Let's move on to baseball. And this is Jeff's favorite sport. And I'll go first with this one. So when I started watching baseball for the first time, I fell in love with Ken Griffey Jr. He's my favorite baseball player of all time. And for a hot second, I started following the Seattle Mariners. They had Ken Griffey and Jay Buhner and Alex Rodriguez. I think it was his rookie year that he started. Edgar Martinez is the best DH I've ever seen play the game. And so I was a Seattle fan at first. A little kid, Seattle fan at first. And then one year, my dad was a mailman. And he traded routes with another guy who had season tickets for the Rangers. And that guy wanted my dad's route so much that he gave my dad a lot of Ranger tickets. Well, I got to go to a lot of Ranger games, Jeff. And going to that ballpark over and over, and I've said almost everywhere in that ballpark except the suite. Going to that ballpark, watching the Rangers play every time, I started falling in love with the Rangers. And I was like, well, I'll start liking a hometown team. It's a lot easier to find their merchandise here. I fell in love with Avon Rodriguez Pudge. He's my favorite Ranger of all time. Rusty Greer was a fan favorite of mine. Nolan Ryan was a beast back in the day. I didn't really get to see a lot of him pitch. I don't remember this game at all because I was a little bit baby. When Kenny Rogers threw his perfect game no-hitter, we were at that. I have a ticket stub from that game, even though I don't remember it because I was a kid. In an envelope stored away. So just going to the stadium over and over and over again and watching these teams play and then falling in love with Michael Young and the player he was. That's why I switched over to being a Texas Ranger fan. But Ken Griffey's still my favorite baseball player of all time. But speaking of, Jeff, real quick question for you. Have you played retro mode on MLB The Show?
I played it last year, and I didn't play it. It's pretty cool. It's like Ken Griffey Jr. baseball.
Yes, it is. And he'll be like, good hit. And it will be Ken Griffey talking. And it's hard to play because you don't have really any control over your pitches really or hitting. I'll play that game and I'll play it and I'll get killed. Like the team put up 6 runs. I'm like, what the? And I'll come up and I'll like fly out and ground out and fly. I'm like, I don't get it. But it's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah,
and
like
one
arcade. It's like arcade mode.
One of my favorite baseball games I've ever played was, and it might have been the first one, was Ken Griffey on 64. And there was a cheat code. If you picked the Seattle Mariners and you were up to bat with Ken Griffey, and if you put this cheat code in before the pitch came, if you did it correctly, if you made contact with the baseball at all, it was a home run. Yes. But that is why I'm a Texas Ranger fan. Just repetition of going to the games in the stadium. And that's why I'm a Ranger fan. And 2011 that didn't happen in a Ranger history. It just blank for some reason. Jeff, it's been just kind of weird. But anyways, please explain. And we bashed when we were middle school because you were a Yankees fan. So. I respect liking the greatness of the 27 championships and all that and the history and the Babe Ruth. And but go ahead and jump in to explain why you're a Yankees fan, Jeff.
Okay. So did I watch baseball as a child? No. My dad was a huge football fan. He rarely watched baseball. I don't remember a lot of watching baseball. We went to the games at Ranger Stadium a couple times. Not a lot I can remember about it. So I remember my one time I was just randomly watching TV and I just stumbled across the playoffs. And I was just like, I don't know why. I was watching it. My mom came in the living room and she said, "Oh, that's interesting. You're watching baseball." I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Oh, those are the Yankees." I said, "Yeah." She's like, "Your grandfather was into them." I was like, "What?" I was like, "My grandfather." And so my entire dad's side of the family is from Rochester, New York. So they had gone to Yankee games as kids. My dad has been at Yankee Stadium when he was a child. My great grandfather took my grandfather to Yankee Stadium when he was a kid. So it's just kind of something that's been around for a long time, but I didn't know that. No one ever really told me that. So I watched, and this happens to be in 96, I think. So we saw Jeter, we saw Mariano, we saw these up and coming players, and they won that year. And I remember I watched a few of the playoff games, but I didn't watch the whole thing. And I remember the news was like showing them going crazy, like dog piling in the middle of the field, everything else. And I was just like, what is going on? Like, who is this? What is this team? And they seem so interesting. They seemed like they had a lot of history or there was something about them that was interesting to me. And it mentioned a number of championships. And I was just like, that's so weird. How does the team win that many championships? So over the course of the next years, the playoffs came and they were in the playoffs and I kept seeing them. And around that time it was when it kind of got real cold and chilly outside. And I was like, man, this is just a October baseball. Like, what is this really cool? And this team's kind of interesting. And my grandfather was into this team and my great grandfather was into this team. Like, what is going on? So I started watching them more and more and rooting for them and liking the players and liking Derek Jeter and liking Posada and liking, Mike Mussina and Andy Pettit and all these players. And I was just like, these guys are awesome. Derek Jeter always seemed like just like the perfect player in terms of off the field, on the field kind of thing. And like, he would always say the right things. And so it was just kind of like, it just seemed like a cool, and then I loved the look of Joe Torre. Like, I was just like, man, he just looks like a New York guy. Like, what? This is a cool,
definitely looked like a New York guy.
This team is so crazy. My mom watched him with me and she's like, oh, Joe Torre, that's an Italian name. Posada, that's an Italian. And I'm just like, what is, like, this is so weird because I'm part Italian. So I'm just like, it's like my roots somehow. And I should pay attention to them. And so I did. And I just became so fascinated with it. And that team got me interested to go to New York one day. And it was so interesting because it was such a history moment for myself and part of my family that I just gravitated towards that team. My dad, who he says he's a Ranger fan, but he has a lot of Yankee memorabilia. And I've watched a lot of Yankee games with him. Once I started getting into it, I started watching it with my dad. We started watching some of the playoff games, and he was secretly rooting for him, even though he won't admit it. And
One of
I think a lot
Yankee
of
fan.
I think a lot of that has to do with his dad. So once I read the history about them and Babe Ruth and all these players, and I just was like, this is amazing. Like, I love the history and I love how old this team is. And I love this just, it's like harking back to the beginning of baseball. And, it's the fans are so passionate and they will boo Babe Ruth in his heyday. They will boo anybody. And I think the fans hold the team accountable. The fans hold the players accountable. And it's a passionate fan base. And I love it. When the team's on fire, the fans are just going crazy. When the team's bad, they're letting everyone know. And I was just a fan ever since. And once I started knowing that my family was really big into them and everything else, and they have my dad has a World Series ticket stub that my grandfather went to in 1946. And it was like $2.75 back then. So, and I think it was like, I don't know what game it was, but it was like maybe it was like the 40, I think it was 1940 something or something like that. So it was a long time ago, but I loved them ever since. My wife became a fan because I showed her the history of them, and she was like mesmerized by that. So she became a baseball fan because of that. So it's just always, I don't know. There's something about, there's this aura about this team that's just like, they're huge, and the fans are all over the place, and they're stretched from Japan to, even in like Europe and stuff. And they're kind of, their hands are everywhere, and everywhere they go, there's Yankee fans. I remember going to Yankee games, at Ranger Stadium, and there were tons of fans. So it's just like,
they do travel well.
It's kind of like a home game, and it's interesting. And I got the chance to finally go to a Yankee game. My wife and I went to New York City, I don't know, 9 years ago. And we went to the original Yankee Stadium. It was the last year that they had it.
Nice.
And we went and we sat right by the dugout, or not by the dugout, right by the bullpen. So I got to see Mo warm up, which was pretty cool. And that was an experience. And I sat there thinking, this is crazy, because this is probably the same place that my grandparent sat in. This is the same place where my grandparent took my dad.
They should have never tore that stadium down, Jeff. I was sad that happened, and I'm not just being a, just for the history of it. It's like tearing down Lambeau Field. It's the most historic football stadium there ever was.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man. And when you talk about family, that's another big thing too, is my grandma and grandpa are big Ranger fans. And when we made the World Series in 2010, I was super excited. We were just kind of excited just to be there type thing. We ended up losing to the Giants. And we went back and played the Cardinals the next year, and we lost in such a devastating way that it made me sad that, I wanted them to win for my grandma and my grandpa, and it didn't happen. And I don't know if it ever will again, but family definitely plays a big role. My grandma would watch Ranger. I mean, she watched every single one of them, man.
Yeah,
every single one of them.
She was always watching them, and
dude,
it's a cool. I mean, it's such an interesting sport because it's just been around for so long, and a lot of people, they look at it and they're like, my wife also, she's like, why do people say it's boring? And I said, because it's slow. And she's like, yeah, but that's what's so cool about it, because at any moment the tide could shift. And I was like, yeah. That's what's so exciting about it. At any moment, somebody could, you could be down 4 runs and then your team goes on a 6-run tear and you're just like, what? Whoa, what?
Well, and on my honest opinion, I think analytics have kind of ruined baseball. As far as it's either home run or strikeout. There's no pitted ball in play, and the diving spectacular catches don't happen as often. But and I think one of the biggest things, honestly, if you like baseball and you have children, get them into it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's another reason too, is that the kids don't want to seem interested. They don't want to go and watch a 4-hour baseball game or whatever. Right. And I like it. I love baseball. It's not my favorite sport, but it is. I don't know if it's my second. Basketball is pretty close. I think it's tied with baseball. Those are my 3 favorite sports. But one of my favorite plays, Jeff, and when you talk about Derek Jeter, he is that Michael Jordan type player where when he retired, he got a send off and he got respect. And I thought that was so cool. And I'm not a Yankee fan, and I hate the Yankees a lot because we make the playoffs and the Yankees would kick us out every single year. But watching Derek Jeter play, the type of player he was, the plays he made, respect on and off the field was just one of those players that I'll never forget. And one of the best commercials ever made was. It was a commercial where he was kind of like he was pulling up to his last at bat at Yankee Stadium. And, he always tipped his hat with the belt, the helmet, and everyone around the stadium was tipping their hat. And they would go to like Jay-Z, who's famous for wearing the Yankee hat. And, and it was just, and they spelled his number was 2 and they spelled respect and they put a number 2. And it was just a class act. And it was a great way to see him go. I can really appreciate that. So that one of my favorite plays was when they played the Oakland Athletics in the playoffs, and they were trying to throw a runner out at home, and the guy overthrew the cutoff man, and Derek Jeter he shouldn't have even been where he was, but he had the smarts to run down the ball, toss it to the catcher as he tags, I think it was Jason or Jeremy Giambi.
Yeah.
That was a play that was like, oh my gosh, what just happened? Why is he even there? He shouldn't even. But it's insane. The play where he went diving headfirst into the stands and busted his face.
Game. Yeah,
and
I watched that game.
That's the type of player he was. He gave it his all, and that's what you can really respect about him. So, even though I hated the team, I respected the legend. And just like Michael Jordan, he has the rings to back it up. He has the history. He has the respect on and off the court. He played the right way and did things correctly. So that's something you can respect about baseball. And you just any baseball fan, if Derek Jeter's a good baseball player, go look him up if you don't know who he is.
And there was also Jeter. Also, particularly, there was a comment or PA announcer who was there ever since Babe Ruth was playing, and up until maybe about 8 years ago or so, and he passed away. And he would call. He had this like voice that was just, larger than life. And Derek Jeter, when the guy passed away, they had a new PA announcer, and Derek Jeter said, "But I want him to call my name when I go out." So they saved that recording of him when he went out, and it was always that same guy, because that's who was when he started, and he loved the voice so much. It screamed the Yankees, and so they kept that there. And so there's so much history, and I love it. I have an entire DVD selection that talks about all the history from the very beginning to, when the inception of the team, back in, I think, 1906 or 8 or something like that, all the way into, back in, I think when I first had that was like 2014. So it's amazing. I love it. I love the history behind them, and I'll always be a fan.
Yeah, that's cool. And when we go and talk about baseball, and like I said, if you have kids, take them to the games, get them into it.
And let them watch some of the movies. Sandlot, like some of these movies were just that's one of the reasons why I put them in the intro for the podcast. Like some of these movies are so iconic. Angels in the Outfield,
Dude, yes.
It's just, there's so many iconic, Rookie of the Year. Like there's all these iconic baseball movies that I think a lot of kids just overlook, man. And I think definitely if kids can watch them, they'll look at it and go, baseball's kind of cool. What, why not? Like,
I think the technology too, why sit through a 3-hour game when I can click here and go, oh, I just watched all the highlights in 3 minutes, Yeah. But, and one of Major League Baseball's biggest issue, Jeff, and they talk about, we don't have as much fans as we used to. And I can't watch a Ranger game, Jeff. I'm in Texas. And unless I have Valley Sports, is what it's called now, is Valley Sports channel, and I got to pay for an extra sports package, I can't watch it. That's the issue. They make these deals and where they think they're going to make a lot of money, and they probably do get paid a lot of money for them, but you're excluded. I can't. I used to be able to, when I was a kid, I used to be able to turn on channel 27, and they had Ranger games all the time. Every home game I could watch. I can't do that anymore. And I think that's a big issue too. But they are trying to change up baseball. They're trying to change it to make it faster, more entertaining. And some of the things are okay, but you can't, if you don't like baseball, a couple rule changes and stuff isn't going to change it to where you like it. And, I think they need to leave it the way it is. And I think they need to promote their players better. Can you name the best player in baseball right now? Can you name the MVP from last year? Can you give me a top 10 list? And a lot of people can't. And I don't even know if I could give you a top 10 list of baseball names. They don't market their players very well. And that's another issue with it. But I love baseball, and it is America's pastime. And it's something that, I bought the show this year, and fantastic game. It's so fantastic of a game that no one else made a baseball game that even came close. So they forced MLB The Show, that's made by PlayStation, to put it out on Xbox because Xbox couldn't come close to making a game.
Well, actually what I heard was that because it's not published by Sony, even though Sony made it, Sony San Diego made it, they didn't publish it, which means they didn't print the discs for Microsoft. They didn't, they're not the ones promoting it for Microsoft. So what happened is Major League Baseball did that behind the back.
Oh,
yeah. Sony didn't have any idea that was happening, and they didn't know it was coming to Game Pass. Let me rephrase. They knew it was coming to Mike. Obviously, we've known it was coming to Xbox or whatever, but they didn't know it was coming to Game Pass. And so MLB came, I guess Microsoft probably came to Major League Baseball and said, hey, why don't we put this on Game Pass? And Major League Baseball was like, well, we're the publishers, so sure, why not? And Sony had no idea. And it made Sony look bad So now, and this is very interesting, this is a new thing. Now Sony has clauses inside their contracts that say this cannot come to Game Pass within a year.
Nice.
Yeah. So
That's
now
good.
when they do exclusive deals, or now when they have these things, now inside these contracts, it says this cannot come to Game Pass for a year. After a year, sure. If you want to put it on Game Pass, whatever, but it cannot come to Game Pass within a year. And
My
those are
brother
that's perfect. That's awesome, I think.
Yeah. My brother said he was very excited because my brother has an Xbox, unfortunately. And he said that he thought when they said MLB Show was coming, he thought it was a joke, an April Fool's joke or something. And he was super excited when it did pop up. And so,
well, from one dynasty to the next dynasty, Brian, we're going to transition
yes.
to basketball. I'm going to let you go ahead and.
Yes, we have been called the Yankees of the basketball world, and basketball to me, man, it started with the love of Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal, and I've watched them, and I will never ever in my life see a better duo play the game of sports, the game of basketball, better than Kobe and Shaq. Kobe was picked up drafted by the Hornets, but traded to LA. And once that happened, the whole Shaquille O'Neal, he has actually a documentary out about how he played with Orlando, and then he got mad about sharing the spotlight with was it Marbury? Sean Marbury. It was Marbury, I believe. No, who was it?
Not Stephon Marbury.
No, it was. I'm drawing a blank on his name. I can see his face. Dang it. Well, there was two superstars there, and Shaq got mad about, basically was frustrated because he wanted to be the spotlight, and so he demanded a trade, and when he went to LA, and him and Kobe played so well together. Shaq's the most dominant center ever to play the game, in my opinion, that I've seen. People want to talk about, other ones, Jabbar and also Will Chamberlain and stuff. I didn't see those guys play, but Shaquille O'Neal dominated, and it was just sheer force, size. And then Kobe dominated as well, but I loved his mama mentality. It's cutthroat. He woke up at 3 or 4 in the morning every day, went and practiced. Every day it was a grind, and he had the right mentality of leadership, being a winner, and not settling for losing. And he took a lot of his game from Michael Jordan. He looked up to Michael Jordan, and he came in and took over, man. And I love everything about Kobe Bryant and the Lakers. When I started watching them play, and then you look at the history of Magic Johnson and all the history of Kareem and the Showtime Lakers, and fell in love with it and been a fan ever since, man. And it was a sad day when we lost Kobe Bryant, and I was at work when that happened, and I started crying, man. I'll tell you, I came home that day from work. I'm actually getting a little teary-eyed right now thinking about it. And I gave my wife a hug, and I cried on her shoulder. And I said, I feel weird for crying. I didn't know Kobe Bryant personally, but that's how much he touched me. And that's how much he touched the world. I mean, people around the world, Jeff, had monuments up for him and painted more murals of him, and the stuff that he did off the court for other people, and the charities and the time he spent. And what's so interesting about Kobe to me was he was such a cutthroat person on the court, right? We saw him I'm going to put my foot on your throat, and I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to let up until you're gone, until it's over. And then we saw him transition from that to a father, to a guy that gave his all to teach his kids, teach his daughter. And another sad thing is that he lost his daughter in that helicopter crash. And we saw him transition from such a, such a, cold-hearted killer on the court to such a good father. And just that transition was cool to see. And I wish we could see it more. But Kobe Bryant was a very special player, my favorite player of all time. And yeah, man, when that happened, I was shocked. I felt weird crying about it a little bit, but Laker fans all mourned Kobe Bryant, and rightfully so. But he's I don't know if he's the only player in history. I think he is to have 2 numbers retired in the rafters. He had 8 and 24, and which is pretty cool. But his mentality, his toughness when he tore his ACL, or not his ACL, when he tore his Achilles and still shot his free throws before walking off the court, and just toughness. And him and Shaq together, man, I would pay. I didn't get to see him. I didn't get to see him live, Jeff, unfortunately. I would love to see that again today. It's not in today's game, but I would love to see that happen again. But
yeah, I think my wife saw him a few times.
That's special.
So yeah, she saw him, and I think she saw Michael Jordan too. So
well,
twice.
let me tell you one thing else about Kobe Bryant. His dedication and hard work. He would learn other language, Jeff, to talk trash to a person on the court. That's insane. There was a time when a short time when Luka was in the league when he first started, and he has a story about how Kobe Bryant was courtside when they were playing the Lakers, and Luka said, "Yeah, some guy's talking to me in my native language," and I turned around and it's Kobe Bryant had learned a language just to talk to Luka Doncic in his home. I mean, that's crazy, awesome. And the dedication, he would do that on the court. I'm like, that's insane. Like the level he went to was just insane, but it's greatness.
Yeah, he was an amazing player. Yeah, I was, the Lakers they were a team that I definitely very much how you were like with the Yankees. I was very much like that with the Lakers. I was like, oh man, like, gosh. So, coming to kind of how I watched or knew about basketball was really Michael Jordan. That's who I even really knew like what basketball was because of him. And also NBA Jam.
Yes, I love that game. He's on fire.
Yeah, but I didn't pay attention enough. I was just kind of like, oh, Michael Jordan, he's good. I know he's like the player everybody talks about. And I watched playoff games with him. I think I watched the last playoff game with him. And after that, it was kind of just like, I think I picked up a basketball game one time. And I was like, I'll just play this. I don't know anybody. I don't know any of the players. And so I picked the Mavericks just because they were local. My dad paid attention to Mavericks. And it really wasn't until Dirk is when I was like, this is pretty cool. Like I can't get into this now. Like I watched it with my dad and Michael Finley, I remember, and Steve Nash. And I vaguely remember Kid playing on there, but I remember mostly Kid playing on the Nets. So yeah, it was really Dirk Nowitzki, and I kind of stayed with that sense. And then when I met I didn't watch it a lot until when they went to the finals against Miami, and then me and my dad really got into it. And then I really got into it, and then I met my wife, and her family was super into it. Like they went to the games, they had season tickets. They were always at Maverick games. So I even more got thrown into it and became more of a fan because of that, learned more about it. And yeah, I think because of Dirk, I'm always going to be a Maverick fan. I'm very surprised that they landed Luka. That's a huge, huge thing. It's very much kind of like how that happened with Green Bay, with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. So, one superstar leaves, another one's right there. So it's just kind of crazy, but how things fall into place. But I like, Mark Cuban's kind of an insane character. I think he's interesting as an owner. He always says some crazy things, and Shark Tank's a cool show to watch because he says some crazy things on there too. But, he reminds me a lot of George Steinbrenner, which is kind of weird. The late Yankee owner who just go off the wall stuff. And then the news would cover it and it would just be his big thing. But yeah, like for me in terms of basketball, it's probably my third favorite sport. But because I'm a Maverick fan, because of Dirk Nowitzki and and then obviously us having to go against Miami, and then finally they won, and it was a really exciting journey to see that player finally win a ring after all that time. So going from nothing to top of the mountain was a long journey, but it was so fun. And unfortunately, the fans in Dallas didn't care one lick when this parade happened, which was unfortunate. It was a super tiny parade. Nobody was there. I remember watching it on TV and I was just like, what? Like, this is the first time they won a championship and nobody cares. That's the first time I realized that Dallas Fort Worth is a football town and nothing else. So unless it's the Cowboys winning, you're not going to see a big parade. So it's just kind of one of those things. But yeah, it was unfortunate because it really bothered me that the fans didn't really care. So
I know the Lakers won last year and we didn't really have a whole big parade because of COVID. So,
well, yeah, but there would have been a crazy parade.
Oh,
yeah.
No, I mean, yeah. But when I look back, and Dirk Nowitzki is also one of those guys who you can respect. And when they played Miami, I was totally rooting for him and wanted him to win. And, honestly, in my opinion, Jeff, Dirk Nowitzki's one championship is more important than any of Kevin Durant's. So Kevin Durant hopped the team. Team went to like a 72-win team to win a championship. Dirk Nowitzki beat a super team. Dirk Nowitzki's
the first super team, one of the first super teams.
It was the first super team of our era.
Well, the Celtics.
Well, yeah. Well,
yeah.
They weren't really talking about as a super team.
They won one, but yeah.
When LeBron went to Miami, the disrespectful way he did it, a lot of people hated him. The way they made fun of Dirk Nowitzki. I just think that Dirk Nowitzki title means a lot more because he did it without joining, without moving, without getting the super team. And the knock on Dirk was before he won this, he was a soft German. He can't win. He didn't. He would. There was a year they were the first seed and they got swept by the 8th seed. And then Dirk put the grind in and they were able to get the job done. And I think that one championship means a lot more than these ones that are won with 3 or 4 superstars, so
yeah,
hats off to that. That was really kind of the last one. I think the last one we'll ever see because people are team hopping all the time now and joining other players. And that's just the way we've gone. And, I love Kobe and Shaq but I wish, there's certain eras in sports that are better than others. Right. And basketball, I think the older basketball, the era of the Michael Jordan and the Bad Boy Pistons and Larry Bird. I think that was the real era of basketball that I would have loved to watch. We were kind of late on that and basketball's changed big time since then. Mm-hmm. Especially it's not as physical as it used to be. Mm-hmm. And I wish I could grow up in that era to see that basketball. That people love Steph Curry, right? I hate Steph Curry. And I don't hate the strong word. I don't really hate him, but I dislike him. I think he's one of the reasons that the NBA is not as good as it used to be. It's all 3-point contests. He's the one that started shooting half-court 3-point shots. You know, he started this thing, and now it's a 3-point contest, and it's taken a little bit of getting used to. You know, it's kind of like baseball and how analytics have changed. You know, this and that, and you know, analytics has changed football, I think, for the better, and more offensive scoring and more passing. But that's the way I feel about it. Now, I still love basketball. I still love baseball and football and all that stuff. But I think the era of basketball was the one I would really love to go back and watch. And when they did the Michael Jordan documentary, which was a fantastic documentary, was awesome. And I really liked that style of basketball. I came in like kind of right after Michael Jordan and his heydays, you know. So I really didn't get to see Michael Jordan and his greatness. But that basketball era was fantastic, and I wish I could have seen it.
I know that I think I saw sometime somebody was talking about how Michael Jordan had changed his game towards the end of his career to be more like a Larry Bird type of player. And maybe I think they said it was mainly because of how much of a physical toll it was taken on him.
Yeah.
Towards the end. And I think maybe that's why the league changed too. I think these guys that are ground and pound, you know, getting bumped and thrown around when they go in the paint or whatever. Like, I think those guys eventually start having and developing a lot more injuries, maybe down the road, maybe not at first, but as it continues on, it's going to continue to be more of a problem and more of an issue. Maybe that's why we're seeing a change in the game a little bit.
Well, I mean, the Bad Boy Pistons, it's on the documentary. You talk about whenever Michael Jordan comes in the lane, you lay him out, period. In a discussion, he will not come to that lane all night long. It's going to be a long, hard night if he does. And it was a chess match, and that's what I like about it. You know, you had the hack a Shaq, where people would potentially foul Shaquille O'Neal to put him on the free throw line because he can't shoot free throws. So it's, you know, that kind of basketball will be gone. When you watch the game today, you see a bunch of complaining, whining about fouls and not fouls, and people drive into the lane, and I'm like, they didn't even get touched, and the foul's called. Like, what's going on? It's crazy to me. So, it's getting a little harder to watch. I will agree. My buddy Casey, who's on here, is a Jazz fan, and you think he would be watching every game. They're first place. They've number one record. But we talk about it. He's like, it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch right now because you got all these complainers and whiners, and this is a foul and that's a foul. And honestly, Luka Doncic is one of those guys, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Oh, he admitted that the other day. Yeah. He's like, I know I complain a lot.
he's fun to watch, but he complains. I'm like, dude, just play basketball.
And I think he's starting to stop doing that recently, and he's just playing. So
yeah. One more technical foul, Jeff, he's going to be suspended. So
two.
No, one more. He got one the other night.
Oh.
Him and Rick Carlisle both got ejected from the game in a technical foul.
You're out of here.
So yeah, it's kind of hard to watch, but you know, my teams, even though they're struggling, they have a good roster, and I'm hoping we can make the playoffs there and really turn it on and stay healthy. If we're not healthy, if LeBron and Anthony Davis aren't healthy, we don't have a shot. But with them healthy, we have a shot. And with them missing so many games, it's, you know, team chemistry, playing with new players this year and all that stuff. But I think that's all our sports that we love. I don't have any other sport that I love. I don't watch hockey.
I like hockey. It's just, I haven't been paying attention because my team's trash. But
Well, I mean, I watched the Stars growing up a little bit, and then I actually remember when they won the championship. Me and my brother were at my grandma's house. We stayed up till like 1 a.m. to watch them play the Colorado Avalanche, and Brett Hull puts the puck in the net as we win. But I really didn't follow it too much. It's fun. It's a fun sport. I actually watched a couple last year, and I was on the edge of my seat. I'm like, man, I don't know how y'all. I might have to get back into hockey. I don't know how y'all do this, man. I'm gonna have a heart attack. Every shot, it could be a goal, or like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, I like hockey games. My wife really likes hockey games.
Going to a hockey game is fun. And we used to go to the Brahmas game. It was the Fort Worth Brahmas. It was kind of like
went with you.
AAA. I think we've been once.
Yeah, I went with you with a youth group, I think.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
Yes. And you go there and you watch it. You're like, oh, this is pretty fun. And then you go to a professional hockey game. You cannot go back. I went to the Dallas Stars game and watched one. Had a blast. Went back to the Brahmas and I was like, this is so boring. I'm not coming back. And they don't even exist anymore. But I'm like, I'm not coming back because I would like to get out some more hockey games. I've only been to one, and I remember it being super fun. But as a sport, I said I'm going to get back into watching, but I barely have time to watch the sports other than football. So I don't think it's going to happen until I retire but.
And Brian's going to have like 20 screens in his garage, and he's going to have every single thing on.
Turn on So that's why we love the sports we do. And I think it's an interesting conversation. If you like, especially if I'm born and raised in Fort Worth, and I get a lot of heckling and a lot of trash talking because I'm a Packer fan. And they're like, oh, everyone assumes I'm from Wisconsin. I'm like, no, born and raised Fort Worth. I tell them, grew up watching Brett Favre, fell in love ever since, man. That's it. And, it's okay to do that. People are like, oh, you're a bandwagoner. And I don't see it that way. I've picked a team and I stuck with them the whole time. I'm not jumping teams. I'm not saying, oh, Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers is going to be trash. Let me go ahead and jump on Tampa Bay because they got Tom Brady. No, it's not happening.
Brian's brother.
Yeah, he has 2 football teams, which
yes.
I don't agree with having 2 teams. Like I have one team and I have a couple players. I'm like, oh, I hope that player does good. Like Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
Oh, Peyton Manning won. Peyton Manning was a fantastic player. Or, Derek Jeter. I hope, he whatever. But I don't have 2 teams in any sport. I don't see how you can. But it was hard when Brett Favre left Green Bay and went to the Jets. I have a Jets Brett Favre jersey. When Brett Favre went to Minnesota, I have a Brett Favre Minnesota jersey, as much as it kills me. And what I would do is I rooted for Green Bay all day. When they played the Vikings and Brett Favre, I rooted for Green Bay. If Green Bay was out of it and Brett Favre was in the playoffs, I rooted for Brett Favre. And that's the way it was. And if Aaron Rodgers leaves, it'll be the same way. I'll root for Green Bay. And if Aaron Rodgers goes further than us, I'll root for Aaron Rodgers. Just the way it is. But I don't have 2 teams in any sport. But I get called bandwagoner. I'm like, you can call me it, but it's not true. I stick with the Lakers when they were horrible. Even with Kobe, when the last couple of years they were garbage.
You definitely
the
can't
Rangers.
You can't be a bandwagoner if your team's not doing well and you're still supporting them. You cannot be considered a bandwagoner.
The Rangers have been horrible every year, but 2, and pretty much. And I'm a Ranger fan, so it's kind of interesting to see. And if you guys out there, if you wanted to tell us your story about why you like your teams, if you grew up in Denver and you're a Colorado fan or Bronco fan, what made you fall in love with the sport? What made you fall in love with the team? Feel free to share that with us. You can share that at Watson's Playbook at gmail.com. You can share that at Watson's Playbook Facebook page. Anywhere you want to share it with us.
I'm also in charge of I started the Instagram. Yeah. So I'm posting little thumbnails and then little captions with each episode. So, and then following people. I've had a few people already follow it. So,
share that
cool.
with me on my personal Instagram, and I will spread it around.
Okay.
Yeah, we're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. It's all Watson's Playbook. Jeff does his streaming on Twitch. He streams a lot more video games than I do. So if you ever have, honestly, I'm pretty sure you're fine with this, Jeff. If you ever have a game you want Jeff to play and review, that's on PlayStation, because we don't play Xbox or anything else because it's complete garbage. But if it's a PlayStation game and you're like, hey, I really want to see a review, and if Jeff has that game, or if Jeff wants to go out and buy the game and play it, you can watch him play it. He's recently played Returnal, which is a game for the PS5, which is one of the games when they've said they talked about it coming out, is one of the games that said that's a game I have to get. I don't have a PS5 yet, but when I do, I have to get this game. Jeff's been playing that. So if you want to go see that, just anything, just feel free to comment, and if you have any questions about me or Jeff, and feel free to ask that too as well. So
yeah, and rate it. And if the podcast that you're using has like a review system, go ahead and give us a review. It helps us out. It helps the analytics of podcasting algorithms out and everything. And yeah.
All right, Jeff, I think it's that time of the episode. This is a special edition. It's a long episode, but what's in your locker this week going on?
In my locker, it's really been paying attention a little bit more to Yankee stuff lately. Season's kicking off a little bit more. Obviously, we just play the Astros, so that was something that's definitely in my locker. Another thing is been really paying attention to a lot of video game news lately when it comes to like PlayStation stuff and what they're up to and everything. And yeah, so like I've been playing Returnal, but here in the next couple of months, Ratchet and Clank's coming out, so I am definitely gonna play that for sure. That's a PS5 only game, and the way they design that is stunning. Like if you have a chance to go on YouTube and look up Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, I think it's Rift Apart or Rift in Time. I think it's Rift Apart. And so you'll be able to watch that. It is like a Pixar movie come to life.
Now, side note with that game, Jeff, and you already know this, but this is for the listeners. This is one of the games they showed off to show what the PS5 can do. And about that, the SSD, the SSD that it has, and why it's so great. So definitely go look at the reviews of that game.
Yeah, and I think lastly, I've been messing around with OBS. I don't know if anybody's on this listening to the podcast has heard of it, but it's a broadcasting software. And a lot of Twitch streamers use this, live broadcasting stuff use it. So I've been messing around with that actually today, trying to figure it out, see if it's something we're going to try and do down the road. That way we could do a kind of a straight to YouTube kind of stream where all of our stuff's on there, and then it will all of our recordings will be on there as well as on audio, like what you're listening to now. So other than that, that's all I got for what's in my locker. What's in yours?
All right. Well, I'm glad you brought that OBS up. We have a YouTube channel, and we're going to start using some more of that coming up. It's been a little hectic for us lately to be doing that, so just bear with us on that. But my locker this week, it's about to get really crazy, Jeff. I've been packing up some things today, and we're kind of moving everything to the garage. As you know, if you've listened to these podcasts the last couple months, it's been about 6 months. Actually, November is when we put a contract down on the house, and we're basically at the end. Monday after work, I got to go over. They're doing the inspection, so I'm paying for an inspection to be done to make sure everything is looking good. Excuse me. And then Thursday this week, I do a final walkthrough of the house, and so basically I'll walk through with Wesley. He's a fantastic person, but he is the building manager there. He's he manages all the houses being built, gets everything done, and we'll walk through and make sure everything looks good to go. And then the Thursday after that is when we sign on the dotted line, which is fantastic. And then the day after that is when we're going to have the movers come move us. We're actually got to pay. We're paying for someone to move us. And then that Friday as well, I got a funeral I got to go to. My uncle passed away a couple months ago, and they're finally having a funeral for him. So got to go to that. And then we're just moving in, man. And so tomorrow we're actually going to go look at washer and dryers to try and buy. And it's kind of weird when you buy in a house, they don't want you to make any big purchases. They want to make sure that you're spending money wisely and type thing. And they look at your bank accounts and they look at all this stuff. And with things being on back order because of COVID, we're like, man, we really need a washer and dryer. So hopefully we can buy one tomorrow, and we've got the approval to go ahead and buy one if we need to. So, we had to do a lot of shopping after we move because we're going to buy all brand new furniture and stuff. But it's fantastic. It's been stressful. This whole process has been stressful, but we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and we're super excited for it. Super excited to move in, man, and own my first house. So it's crazy. It's crazy, but it'll be our forever home because I hate moving and I ain't doing it again, and I am not doing it again.
Everyone says that.
Yeah. So, when I got a different position at work and it came with a pay raise, so I'm able to stop my second job. And my wife actually is doing my second job. She's a stay-at-home mom ever since we started having kids. She's been a stay-at-home mom, and she wanted to go back to work. And so we kind of on Saturdays is my day with the girls, and she gets to go to work and socialize with other adults. So she likes that. So it's kind of a win-win, and I still have that income coming in plus my raise with a new spot. So things are going really well for us right now. I've been working long hours, but it's just part of the job. And, so hopefully we get to move into the new house. And then after we move into the new house, I'll get a computer. I can't make that purchase until after I saw it on the dotted line. And I can help out. We'll be able to get the YouTube channel going back up and working on the OBS and doing all those things and trying to build the channel even more. So bear with us. It is coming. But we're starting to throw out more content here, as well as we've put out 3 episodes in a week and a half, just about, or maybe even in a week. So, and I know this is a long episode, but, it's just, it is what it is. I don't know what else to tell you. But we appreciate all you guys that do listen. If you do listen, like it, share it. If you like our content, then share it around. If you stumble upon our, for the women that don't like sports, if you stumble upon our podcast and you're like, my husband might like this, share it with them, share the word, spread it, and just continue to do our thing here. So
yeah. And just give us any kind of heads up if you want a topic talked about that maybe we haven't touched on yet, that is, related to anything sports in the sports world, or, if there's anything off the wall, we can always just make a segment towards the end that just is really anything that you guys want to talk about that, that's relevant to stuff that we've mentioned on the podcast already. So yeah, any kind of fan interaction is great. So just give us a heads up, email Brian, find us on Twitter, give us, even if you find us on Facebook or Twitter or something and wanted to submit a question that way, we could do that too. So we would just save it and then bring it up in a segment on the podcast. But other than that,
exactly,
it's been a fun episode, man.
It has been. And I kind of thought this one was going to be a long one with our miscellaneous. We knew where we wanted to go with the main topic and kind of explaining. And, it's cool because I didn't know about how you became a Denver Bronco fan and how we became a Bronco fan the same exact time as I became a Packer fan.
This was a special 50th episode. Everybody, this has been a fun journey. We've reached 50 episodes. We are over 500 downloads. which I think we surpassed yesterday. So
Nice.
which is awesome. And it's little by little. This is developing. So it's fun.
Yeah, we don't do it for any money. Me and Jeff don't make any money off this. Jeff should actually probably be getting paid for the editing he does on this show. So, but no, this is something that we like to do, and it's just a passion of ours, and I've never really found any hobbies that I really like, and this is it. And if it grows and blows up and I can become rich off of it, fantastic. Do I see that happening? I don't know, but I'm going to continue to do it. Even if I'm talking to one person out there and that's Jeff, then it is what it is. We're going to keep on rolling out episodes, and hopefully keep it interesting for you sports fans out there. So,
all right, guys, this was a fun 50th episode, Brian. Happy
Yes.
50th birthday.
Happy. Oh, no. Yeah. 50th. No. Birth. Ooh. I don't want to know what it feels like to be 50. So, all right, guys. Well, God bless you. Enjoy your weekend. Tomorrow is Sunday, and just enjoy it, and get back to work on Monday, I guess.
All right, guys, take care.
All right. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.